Come on, take a seat.
Hey, Ron.
How you doing, Ron?
Surprise, surprise.
It is a surprise.
How are you, buddy?
Very pleasant surprise. How are you?
Good to see you again, man.
See you.
That's Tammy
Absolutely.
Pescatelli, a funny comic.
How are you? Nice to see you.
I'm Jim,
Yeah.
really good actor.
He's a closer for sure.
He constantly tries to sell himself
And why
to
not? And why not?
directors that come in here.
You look thinner. You look good.
I'm, you know what? I'm doing a movie called Heart of the Sea, which is a survival story, a true story, and all the actors are on a reduced diet. Now, I don't have to do this thing.
Oh, man.
But somehow it's a pretty good influence. It's with Chris Hemsworth. Everybody's
Sure.
very.
Oh, what's the gist of this?
It's actually based on the events that actually inspired Herman Melville to write Moby Dick.
Oh, wow.
Which is a whale ship was sunk in 1820, and the survival story is the one that was a big story, of course, in its era, but nobody knows much about now, and it's a pretty remarkable adventure story.
So what exactly is that? What are you eating?
Well, I'm just being a little healthier. I'm just being a little healthier. That's really just a
eating
little
less
less of everything and a little more exercise. That's
It gets
about it.
addicting though when people start to notice it. It feels kind of good to hear like a nice compliment, and then you're like, yeah, I kind of want to
Are
keep
you
going
fishing
with
for one, Jim?
it. No, no, but I mean, obviously,
Next step, anorexia and neurosis.
body dysmorphia, hating yourself in the mirror. It's a nice road you're on.
We didn't know we were getting Ron Howard today. You were in the building, I guess. and
I'm here today.
Is that you
cool.
filming outside? No, not at all.
No.
Oh, yeah, there
They
are
probably
people
all
filming
the actors
outside.
probably sit up straighter when they see him walk by.
Tonight there's a screening, Project Imagination, 10 short films. And I've been sort of a part of this. This is the second season of this project. Canon sponsors it, and it's been it's been really a blast. And last year my daughter Bryce made a movie, and it was a situation where the concept was people send in photographs for various dramatic categories, a setting, character, and so forth, and then those would get winnowed down by the public, and then finally I would select one photo for each category, and then in this case last year Bryce had to go take her inspiration from that, make a movie. And she wound up, it's sort of an academic experiment or a cool creative experiment. She wound up making a very personal, very interesting movie. She even got on the short list for the Oscars last year. They decided to do it this year. And this year they got 5 celebrity filmmakers, but people who are not known as directors or haven't directed very much yet. And then they also opened it up to the public. So tonight they're going to be 10 films, and not only is it Eva Longoria and Jamie Foxx and the other celebrities, but it's also five filmmakers who just took it upon themselves to look at the photographs, take some inspiration from that, make a movie. Hundreds and hundreds came in.
Yeah, I saw the commercials that were running for.
Bryce and I were the judges on that. And we absolutely blown away by the creativity. And that's honestly what I really like about the whole project. Is it's terrific if Jamie Foxx gets to make a movie, but it's not surprising if it's cool.
Right.
But when you get these movies coming in, ambitious movies, really incredibly creative, incredibly entertaining, and you realize that that's one of the things that technology is doing.
Isn't it amazing what's available to the amateur or layman as far as technology goes? Stuff that wasn't available to professionals just a few years ago.
Well, and the whole thing is kind of blending because on the movie Rush that's out right now, the
Congrats,
cinematographer.
by the way.
Thank you.
Seriously.
I really had a great time.
You got to be proud of that one.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
But anyway, sorry.
Well, part of our challenge was to try to, recreate this world in a very authentic, very personal, intense, particular sort of way. And we wound up using Canons a lot, not because I came in and said, we got to use Canons, but Dodd Mantle, who is extremely experimental and did a fantastic job with Rush, really pushing the envelope, and he always has using technology. And among his tools, and a great solution for a lot of our problems turned out to be the Canon professional models. And so it's the two worlds are kind of blending.
No big Panaflex or.
Not so much.
Something like that.
Not so much.
It is amazing.
We had all kinds of cameras. I mean,
I bet,
and again, that's what was required. And it was an interesting challenge because speaking of technology, we used every tool in the contemporary movie maker's kit to try to hopefully make audiences feel like they were just transported back into the 70s and experiencing that world and those characters. So it was a tremendous creative challenge, and it was it was made a lot easier due to technology.
Have you seen technology hurting the storylines at all, or hurting some of the writing in movies?
I don't think so, and a lot of people say that, going back to when digital editing first really, came in 15, 20 years ago. I personally don't, but my mind sort of is attracted to variety, options. That's why I make a lot of different kinds of movies.
Absolutely,
to me, the whole thing's kind of an exploration. And so anything that makes the creative process leaner is also then naturally becomes more personal. And so for me, I'm feeling that I can get to what was in my mind a lot more often now than I could even, 8-10 years ago.
Yeah, because you've been through filmmaking throughout, where you had to, sit there and literally cut the film.
Yeah, I've got my 8mm splicer at home.
Yeah. So it has to. I would almost think it leaves more time for the creativity to not have to worry that you're going to take such a chunk of time to do stuff now that you could do a lot faster.
It ought to work that way, but you know how it is with the man. If they know you can do it faster, they want it faster.
Okay.
If they know you can do it cheaper, they want it cheaper.
Yeah.
But what it does is, I just think it creates a kind of fluidity. I think there are more options. I think the danger is if people start spinning so fast that they don't stop and they really think about what their story is. They don't think about an innovative way of doing it. They just kind of, they just sort of blast into it and do everything on the fly. That style was something that we applied to Rush, but it was not done on the fly. Right. It was very conscious, very thoughtful.
It's kind of like
we had a goal.
The 3D technology. When it first hit, they didn't really care about the story as much. It's just like, wow, now you can see movies in 3D. And finally, they're starting to realize, okay, people are over that. Now we still got to make an interesting film.
Well, I don't know, 5, maybe 7 years ago, Bob Zemeckis, a peer of mine and a friend, was a great innovator. He did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Back to the Future movies, always pushing the envelope visually. But he gave a great quote, which he said, soon audiences are going to recognize that visually anything's possible.
Right.
And what's it going to mean? It's just going to bring everything back to story and character.
Perfect.
And what does it all add up to?
You could look at them. I mean, there are movies that are visually amazing and they're not good movies because the story is terrible, and vice versa. There's great stories that use barely anything as far as effects go, and that's great. So it's always story driven, I think, is the most important thing.
With that said, did you see Gravity? And what do you think?
I haven't seen it. I've been.
You
working
haven't seen it?
It hasn't opened in Europe yet, and that's where I've been.
Oh, okay.
And so I've heard nothing but great things. I think it's
visually
gonna be
just amazing,
stunning. I think it's a fantastic fall shaping up, and
do you have a love-hate with movies like that? Like, because if it's one that you haven't done, you're like, that's great. Oh, I hate it because it's hard to watch it.
Well, Rush is a lot about rivalry, and so I've been thinking a little bit about this as it relates to, anytime the award season comes along, Rush got a lot of good reviews. It makes you, wonder, are you on the bubble? Is the film in the mix?
You do care about that still?
Of course, because it's a matter of pride.
Sure.
And it means a lot to the movie, and it means a lot to the people. In this case, the editors did stellar work. The cinematographer, fantastic work.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer's score is remarkable. So there are a lot of categories. Daniel Bruhl, who played Niki Lauda, is just did
amazing
career level work. So you're not only rooting for the movie, but you're rooting for those people as well. But of course, so you look at it and you see a great movie, and I'm still very much a fan. So I don't see it and start resenting it. It's the car ride home where I say, what does that person know that I don't know? Damn it! Howard, get with it.
But you've worked with Tom Hanks, obviously. Yes. Did you see Captain Phillips?
Captain Phillips is great.
Yeah.
Really, really. I did see that. That opened.
The end, what he pulls off in that. Examination.
Don't give it away.
Don't give anything away.
I won't. I'm just saying it's
Wilson
amazing.
Came back.
All you have to know is, Tom Hanks is he makes it look kind of easy, but he's a dedicated artist and he's a great talent and a great guy to work with. But what a year Broadway, Captain Phil. You know, I mean, he's been given a lot of accolades, but he deserves everyone that comes his way.
You've worked with him early in like Splash, and then later on in Apollo 13. What kind of difference did you notice any at all in his acting or?
Well, I think at the beginning he really thought he was going to be a comedic actor.
Right.
And I think that's, you know, he began in theater and then he made his breakthroughs, you know, in television and then movie comedies. And it had been about 10 or 11 years. We stayed friendly and I certainly saw all of his movies and I saw what was happening to him, his broadening, you know, the kinds of roles he was tackling. But when I started directing him in Apollo 13, it was interesting because the moments in between the dialogue, the moments in between the scripted, intentional, planned ideas were suddenly rich and really alive. And to me, that's sort of when he was, and it was happened prior to Apollo 13, he had become a great, great screen actor. One of those guys that holds the screen because there's more going on than just what the writer wrote.
Yeah.
There's parts of when you watch him act that you can tell it's him. It's an odd thing. There's this sense of humor that he has. There's a scene in Apollo 13, as a matter of fact, when they're having that argument on board the ship, and then he has to talk on the radio, and he goes down real low, back in control. And that was so Tom Hanks. It was kind of a funny moment, and I thought that was really
good
brilliant.
acting is supposed to be bringing you into the character, which is.
Yeah,
right? I mean, isn't it really? I know, no, trust me.
Well, it's
we just know radio.
Tom's also a good writer, and he's a good director, and so he's you know he's as all the great actors do. They not only know how to bring their character to life, but they also really understand what's going on, and they have a good communication going with the director, and a real sensitivity to what the movie needs. And the best actors not only show up and do a great job with their role, but they also know how to ask, you know, smart questions, tough questions, and keep sort of, you know, there's sort of a creative X factor on a movie.
See, Ron, I feel the best method of acting is I like to let the other person finish their dialogue, and when their lips stop moving, I fire my line.
He mouths their dialogue.
I know you're bullshit, my line.
That's it. Hand me a lollipop.
Oh, my God.
But I want to ask you a question. With all this chaos that's surrounding some of these young child stars that have ascended into adulthood and had all these problems. I mean, you are the epitome of the child star, but the success story. What do you think was the difference for you? I mean, I love how your brother's in it. I mean, we just watched The Grinch, talk about a kid. We watched The Grinch last night, and you see Clint, and we just see all the, you know, it's just great.
I love
Clinton. That you guys...
It is Tranya, Captain.
I've got to tell him.
I love it.
Hopefully Clint hears about this. I'll tell him. I'm going to email Clint.
That's my favorite part of just to find him and all that. You know,
he's great. He's a really good, strong character actor. And I, you know, look, we our parents were terrific and did a great job. I don't really know because this is just my life, and it's except that I know I always liked it. I never had confusion over it. I never had ambivalence about, is this really what I want to be? And this would even, even when, not to go to some play, but when you're adolescent and you're struggling, you're not getting as much work, and bullies are teasing you, or kids are are hassling you. They used to sing the Andy Griffith theme song while I was at the free throw line trying to shoot free throws for the opposition team. Just miss it, Opie.
How bad is that?
But that stuff was never too great a trade-off. I mean, in other words, I loved going to work, and I loved being a part of this creative process, and and so I didn't have that ambivalence. I didn't struggle with that.
Between the Andy Griffith Show and Happy Days was kind of not really. I mean, you were obviously working, but not as much as
there's a period
time
when you reach a point where the child labor laws make it really impractical.
Oh, wow.
Because if you could get somebody who's over a certain age, now it's, I think, lowered a little bit to 16. There's kind of a margin, but it used to be 18. If you could get somebody who looks say 14 or 15, that is 18, they can work all hours, just like any adult. But the 15-year-old, 16, 17-year-old is still limited by child labor laws.
Right.
So it's just a very practical issue. And it just naturally sort of crushes any momentum.
Yeah, that shuts you out of roles, obviously.
How are you feeling about TV these days? Because TV is getting a newfound respect as far as shows like Breaking Bad and
you were great on great on Arrested Development.
Yes,
that was terrific.
I loved being a part of Arrested Development, and it's back to technology. Arrested Development never would have come back had it not been first the internet, then DVDs, then Netflix. I mean, without a question, television to me has sort of evolved into this. I mean, it's always been great work is great work, and it's always been there on TV. But I love what's happening there.
As a filmmaker, it's I'm sure you see it's gotten a newfound respect where legitimate actors, let's say, are willing to do TV.
For one thing, they've shortened the schedule so that actors don't feel like they're signing their entire career away
on some kind of a treadmill.
Series. And writers as well. And also, again, back to technology. The television shows are able to operate on a reasonable enough budget and yet be a little more cinematic, a little more ambitious. And cable has allowed the freedom for them to be as authentic and true to life as movies. So, we're no question, we're in a whole entertainment, technology, social revolution. And, there's it's exciting on a lot of levels. It's daunting on a lot of levels. It's upsetting the economy in certain ways. And, and so I don't know if people in the middle of the Industrial Revolution or the Renaissance knew what was happening to them
at the time, but in hindsight,
but we're in it.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's got to go.
Oh man, Roland's
freaking
out.
This was a nice surprise.
Thank you.
We love having
Yeah.
Farhan too. We want to plug P1. Am I saying that right? P110 goes live on Yahoo's screen.
Yeah, P10, right?
Oh, P10. Okay.
Project Imagination, spelled with 10.
Oh, that's great.
What a dope I just sounded like.
You were blinded by how pretty she was. That's all. Thank
you. Always fun to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron. Ron Howard, everyone. We're going to take a quick break. Stay there.
The Opie and Anthony Show. On Sirius XM. All right, well, that sucked. To hear the Opie and Anthony Show 5 days a week live on satellite radio, online on your phone or tablet, or even on demand, go to SiriusXM.com. Also, interact with the Opie and Anthony Show on Twitter, @Opie Radio, @Anthony Cumia, and @Jim Norton.